and my sister-in-law, his wife, has had past couple of years some pulmonary issues, breathing issues. So what was it, last year when the people were showing up at my house, I said I'd be glad to do it. I looked at these people, I don't remember inviting you, but they were all family members. So what I'd like to do, since we've almost got 35 people online, what I'd like to do is, because my memory is sometimes faulty, is start a slideshow. And let's go. Slideshow, play from the stuff. Okay. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, and what I would say is, and understand, you know, in this time of coronavirus, COVID-19, concern over the health of attendees who are often of an age which contracting the virus may pose significant personal health issues, we have to adapt. In short, we've been inflicted by another plague. And what I tried to do is, there is no right or wrong way to do a virtual Seder, since we've not had the ability, never had the ability, and nor the need to do such. And as I mentioned before, most Jewish ritual observance developed over significant periods of time, and 2-3 weeks in Judaism is not considered a significant period of time. And your family ideas are what is important. On my wife's side, a quick aside, we're probably the most religious, and I assure you we're not religious, although we do keep a kosher home, and I spend a disproportionate amount of time at shul. Most of her family really doesn't care. And so although we do it, about 10 years ago, we went to the 30-minute Seder, 30-minute Haggadah, and elaboration.
I'll just talk for 1 second. I'm going to
Alan, mute everybody, please.
I don't unmute you. Hold on, please. Just give me a second.
Sure.
Okay, Alan,
Okay.
you're unmuted.
Okay, great. Thus, your ideas are welcomed, encouraged, and appreciated. Whether or not you've been accepted to rabbinical school, you can contribute. Let's see. This presentation assumes the following. Family and guests have some technical skills. They have a computer or tablet. They can download or install an application and then launch it from the link provided with your email to them. And obviously, while traditionally you might call up to invite people for Seder, the way this works the best is you send them an email. Since they don't expect you to provide all the food, special or otherwise, which is part of the Seder experience, you'll probably have a Flusher bank account. They may need to do some preparation. That's what my sister and I were talking about today. You know, depending on the length of the Seder you want, you might need a Zoom account. The free account, and that's at www.zoom.com, allows for a 40-minute Seder. And that's from 40 minutes from the time the first person logs on. Now, one of our international—
Alan, excuse me for a minute. I believe, Alan, I believe the link is .us.
.us, okay. If you do come, it will take you to the US. The first thing, a free account allows for a 40-minute, but one of our past international presidents who has used the free account for a number of group events said he got an email from Zoom that, at least for the current while, allows him somewhat unlimited. But even if you were to have to purchase a 1-month monthly pass, which is $14.99 a month, allows for the Seder to be as long as you wish. And obviously, when I was talking to my son, he said he has a Zoom account, so that, you know, the even though I was ready to purchase a link, the program, which I suggest that you use, primarily because it does a very good job. We were trying, a number of the leadership were trying, after we had gone through a Zoom call. The leadership has a weekly meeting, and we tried to do it on Facebook. And part of the problem is, depending on the strength of each individual links, while it may show you and allow and hear you, it may not show your picture. And that's what I was having. The three other people, I could see their pictures. You know, it was obviously their videos, but I was merely an AK. As I said, FJMC uses Zoom, and lots of business use Zoom, and it's a wonderful way for these group things. And as I, you know, as I mentioned to my sister, I said, you know, from the savings, not that you want to do this, but the savings between wine and food, you can more than easily afford $15 for the Seder. I wish food or wine only cost that little. Structure of the service. Obviously, the sooner you get an invite out.
Alan,
Yes.
can I just add a
Sure.
Can I just add a technical point? So I've had the free account for some time. So what I do if I'm having a meeting that I think it's going to run longer than 40 minutes, I just schedule 2 Zoom meetings back to back. So it is a little inconvenient because it'll knock you off after 40 minutes, but then everybody just connect, and then you're back in for another 40 minutes. So if you don't mind doing that, then you can still use the free.
Okay.
To add that.
That's a great idea. You know, now, obviously the Haggadah is in terms of the structure for the service would be your first choice. But unlike a traditional Seder where you may have, you know, 12, 15, 20, 30, 40 copies. At one time we had, what was it? Our largest Seder of a number of years ago was 45 people. What was it? Many years ago, Empire Chicken and all, Empire Poultry used to, if you would send in the metal tags, for every 3 you could get a copy of a free copy of the what was it? The Art Scroll Haggadah. And so I think we had 50 copies. We ate lots of chicken. But you know, since you're not going to be able to pass out those Seders, you know, mailing copies of them doesn't seem like a good option. So here's the options that you can do. Maxwell House Haggadah. Many, if not most of the grocery stores near you, if they carry Maxwell House and they have at least a small Jewish population, will have copies of the Haggadah available for free, ostensibly if you purchase coffee. My brother, a number of years ago, went to the local grocery store and he asked them if he could get a few copies. And this was prior to Pesach. And the manager of the store says every year they have to throw out many copies, so please take as many as you'd like. So that's one option for you. There is another, the 60-minute Seder. This is something that we downloaded. And we've been using it for more than 5 years. It's probably closer to 10, and it provides the basic structure, which we supplement, usually much to the chagrin of many of our guests, who repeat at least 4 times the major question that many people going to the Seder is, when do we eat? Or you can create your own, and there are many sites that can lead you to creating your own. And all you really need is the basic structure, even though we use the 60-minute Seder, and we probably got 50 copies of that photocopied and bound. The reality is that we add a lot of additional material. And creating your own doesn't stop you from sending out a reading to a guest, even if you don't have your own Haggadah. You know what the structure of the service is. There are, because we've done it for years, there are lots of new takes on the same subject, and this is a way you can scan it, might be a PDF and with details specific of what you want to do. Whoops.
Allan?
Yes.
There is on the FJMC website, there we had a torch award that was that created their own Haggadah.
Okay.
Can we
Want to look at
circulate?
that? It's really good.
I checked for the 60-minute Seder while I was listening to you, Allan.
Yes.
And it looks like it's a paperback or certainly something that asserts to be under copyright.
Well, no, there is a PDF that is available, and you can purchase the PDF. So that you don't have to buy a paperback copy of it. It's a 30-minute Seder. I'll be glad to send the link at the end of the presentation. I'll have my email address, and if you want any information, I'll be glad. Send me a thing saying, just entitled Virtual Seder, and I will clutter your email box with much material.
I would like that. I'm a little less comfortable with circulating something that's an ebook because that is sort of a copyright violation.
Right.
Who cares, but it's a copyright violation.
Right.
But if we have, there's certainly, I suspect I have a bunch of very old Seder scripts from historical times
Right.
that are certainly out of copyright by a couple millennium.
Right.
And however, if anybody has links to a modern one that's legal to send around,
Yes.
I'd sure like to share that.
Sure,
There's also haggadot.com.
Right.
You can check it out.
And there are many sites which now have created their own Haggadah. I think I downloaded 2 or 3 within the past week. Download it. And if people want to use that, and since it's a PDF, if someone, depending on the family, if they have tablets, the Haggadah can be read on their tablet.
I just recently got Haggadah from jubilong.com.
Okay, yes.
And adapted it with other sources, cut and pasting from haggadot.com as well.
Right.
How are we spelling Haggadot? Because I just spelled Haggadot the way I would spell it, with a TH on the end, and I got nothing.
Haggadot, or it may be haggadah.com. I'm not sure which one. I don't remember.
You were right.
If anybody wants, there we go. No,
I'm pretty sure it's Haggadah.
There's Haggadah.com is a website that's for sale.
But yeah,
anyway,
we can.
We don't need to take bandwidth for this. If we
right.
can
Yeah, we can. We can do
chat.
that afterwards, and provide you with as many links. And the links are all basically. I don't want to say open source, but the reason they're distributing them is that people want to use them. People want them to be used. Obviously to the extent that your Seder can add some levity to the situation, it will be most appreciated. For example, and it doesn't relate to a virtual Seder, but every year at my brother's Seder, when we get to the portion of all the things that God is doing, when we get to I and not fiery aim, so I would speak in a very deep voice as if it was the voice of God. And it would add a little levity to the Seder, which is always appreciated. The 4 cups of wine, I think that's easy enough for most households to supply their own libation. And then you don't have to worry, if to the extent that it matters to you, you don't have to worry about the hecture. I looked at the Seder plate, and that's where you can be creative as well. Everyone should be able to have an egg, parsley, or they could substitute a different green vegetable. Shank bone, as it shows on the slide, when we have 25 to 45 people, we'll have 4 different Seder plates prepared. And in lieu of 4 shank bones, what I do is I print up sheets of paper that show this link of shankbone.org. It's a non-existent organization, USA, Maryland, and Resnick family. So that, and people, it ends a little humor, and G, not everybody's going to go out, particularly if they're participating virtually, to get a shank bone. So that's a way to do it. Charoset, and traditionally in my family, about 15 years ago, bored by the traditional Ashkenazi taste of nut, fruits, and the traditional Ashkenazi charoset, I'll usually prepare 4 or 5 different, primarily Sephardic recipes. And the question that you always ask when you're doing a virtual Seder is, while you may prepare many of these things, whether other people will potentially be willing to prepare. So one of the things that I thought of is a little almond butter with a pinch of cinnamon or nutmeg might make an interesting and easy non-traditional charoset. Crane, horseradish, that is something that is relatively easily available within the grocery stores, because I'm also thinking, gee, while my family, my table may have the traditional Seder plate, the question is, how will the other virtual guests be willing or able to have it without going through a great deal of effort? One of the things that, if you really want to do it right, there's nothing that would stop you from including a number of recipes or particular items that might be special to you, to your Seder, with your invitation. I've done that at other holidays. Obviously with the structure of the service is the structure of the service. Now, one of the things that 4 cups of wine, now, as the charoset, because that is something that is so different than what most people will be, what most Jewish or non-Jewish households will be eating during the year. There is, beyond the traditional, you can tune into my webinar about charoset, which is next week. And I'll have a number of non-traditional charoset, which anybody can make and I make. The Seder plate continue, grain, bitter herb, or if they don't want to go out to buy a bottle of horseradish, sprinkle some hot sauce into a piece of celery or other vegetable, so that they can, they can get the impression. Depending on the creativity of the guest, ask them to be creative. And when you're describing the items, ask them what they used as part of this virtual Seder, because what you really want to do is not lead the Seder, but lead a group experience. One of the more interesting things, and I have used this every 3-4 years with my own Seder, is Jo Nathan in her cookbook, Jewish Food in America, has two stories about Civil War soldiers and wishing to, relating to Passover, and particularly the one about Union soldiers wanting to celebrate Passover. They asked their commanding officer what they can do well enough in advance. And so he ordered from Cleveland what was it? A barrel of matzah came. Within the barrel were a number of Haggadot, but obviously they had to create a Seder plate here on the battlefield. And so they couldn't make haroset. So what they did is they found a brick and placed the brick on the Seder plate, or on the plate, because they really had no Seder, a special Seder plate, because obviously the haroset represents the bricks. They couldn't find grain, so they found an herb. Really, it was a weed that, as they mentioned, was as bitter as anything that the Israelis had or the Israelites had ever tasted. You know, so they got creative in the middle of war, and that, you know, I know that the other story relates to, that Joe Nathan has in her cookbook, relates to a Jewish Union soldier walking through the streets of Atlanta after the Union Army had conquered it, and he walks past the house and he starts smelling, and what he was smelling was probably chicken soup that was being prepared, and the little boy out front goes running into the house and talks about, "Mammy, there's some, you know, Union Jew outside." And so what did she do? But she invited him to the Passover Seder that night. I think they're wonderful things. You know, obviously the meal, to the extent possible, if you feel comfortable, send recipes of some of your family signature dishes for Passover with the invitation, so that participants, if they're willing to cook, have a time to get the ingredients and cook them, so that they'll at least have that taste for them. And the most important thing of any virtual Seder is encourage participation. Obviously with the songs, the telling of the plagues. Obviously we can add an 11th plague of today, you know, COVID-19. Ask questions about the participants' favorite Passover memory or favorite Passover food, most memorable Passover Seder, the importance of making memories, favorite parts of the Passover Seder. One year, years ago, when there were more of the older generation, we asked them, since we tell the story of our ancestors' departure from Egypt to Eretz Yisrael, or what became I asked each of those that had literally come from the old country to America, and to talk about that memory, and anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, anything that causes people to talk, so that you're not just leading them separately alone. And this list is not exclusive. Add. Finding the afikomen. You know, as I was trying to figure out, and I was looking on the internet, you know, how can we do that? You know, an internet word search, or Where's Waldo style picture, or a Wikipedia hunt. And there was one that said it would be easy to Venmo the prize to the finder. And now I have started to create a word search that includes both afikomen as well as a number of other Passover related words. And I will be glad to send that out to anybody that asks. You know, it's, and as I said, I'm working on this, you know, and it also does include afikomen. Go ahead.
Very simple, I'm asking. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, right. You know,
The now grown children might like that one, whereas
Right,
nobody really wants
right.
to go find the afikoman anymore.
right. Well, but part of the thing is you're no longer together. You know, that by technology, you're at least able to have some semblance of togetherness. And if you can create special memories regarding this, hopefully this will be the one and only time within our lifetime and our children's lifetime, and maybe our children's children, that we have to have a virtual Seder. You know, there are other information gathering opportunities. This coming Thursday at 8:30, Rabbi Chuck Simon will be talking about Seder options in this time of a plague. The reality is, unfortunately, probably during those times, a virtual Seder was not a viable option. And next Thursday, as I said, I'll be giving a presentation, spicing up your Haroset beyond the traditional Ashkenazi. Obviously, you need to check the FJMC website for the Zoom link. And it took, I have to say, it took about 3 years doing the, there were 5 Haroset, but none of them were the traditional one that I grew up with and most of the people had grown up with. And it took a number of years to finally, oh, gee, this is really interesting. And we would have we would create a paper, a ballot. Gee, tell us which is your favorite. And it would be interesting that once people started to do this, that, oh, this is really delicious. We made, for my daughter-in-law, who's got a Cuban ancestry, we made a Cuban, individual balls with, I remember there was coconut. There was a course that I took. Washington used to do a day of Jewish learning, and when they had more, we'll say, less thought-provoking things, they used to do a number of classes for women or people that were really artsy-fartsy, and I used to be the only male in the cooking classes or the arts and craft classes. And as a regard to the food class, there was a recipe that has been a standard one that includes neither nuts nor spices and is delicious, a Turkish one. So yes.
Alan, I can see based on what you're presenting that there's some really interesting ideas. One of the things I see is right after this, I'm going to put a spreadsheet together and assign the various families that we have to sign up for it, encourage them to do that. And I think there's a political aspect to it, because with 4 families, we have to pick out a night where it's actually going to be favorable for everybody to jump in and get together and be with us. So it's either the first or the second, and then they have to go to their in-laws. So,
Right.
But I think we're going to have to figure out which Seder is the one that's going to be the strong virtual one, and then let everybody sign up for it. And when we open the door for Eliyahu, hope that nobody actually comes through the door.
Right. And then if they do, touch elbows. Listen, many years ago when I was single, there was a group that I helped get started as a result of a United Jewish Appeal Federation Young Leadership in Washington. That's how I met my wife. And we will be celebrating our 40th anniversary later this spring. And as I frequently say, so I've been paying for that meeting for many years. A group of us, enjoyed getting together. And so we started a Shabbat group that was once a month. And literally we had a third Seder for a couple of years. And so, yeah, whichever is most convenient. And as I said, if you'll send me an email and entitled it Virtual Seder to my email address, I will be glad to send you. Now, if there's stuff that you have that you'd like to share with others that you may have been too shy to talk about, Alex, you have a rabbi in the making who is not.
I was actually going to speak up because
please do.
in going back to the challenge of having a common Haggadah among multiple locations and multiple families,
We don't.
we have a tradition that was started from my rabbi of blessed memory, who had asked us for a second night Seder if we could help him fulfill his rabbinic fantasy, which was to have everybody at the table have a different Haggadah. And we've kept that tradition alive now that my older daughter is a rabbi in Indianapolis and my younger daughter here is now a rabbinic student.
In 6 months.
In 6 months, well, starting this fall, is to continue with that tradition and have, you know, we have a number of Seders that we've used here in the house, the Rabbinic Assembly Seder, the Titanic Seder, as we call it, A Night to Remember, as well as a couple of other different family Haggadot. And we've added to that with the, there's a women's Haggadah. We have a graphic novel Haggadah that we've added to the mix. But that brings another way to
Start discussion.
A different angle for discussion as people encounter how their version has a different viewpoint of that particular portion of the Seder, to, you know, step in and bring that up and have that be part of the discussion.
I will improve this presentation by that as number one. It doesn't matter what your, you know, obviously depending on the family, some families to whom the Seder might be one of the few Jewish holidays that they celebrate. That the fact that somebody's reading something that reads a little different than what they're reading may be very confusing. But gee, if they have no issue with that, you know, I can pick up a different prayer book, and even if the congregation is doing an English reading, well, basically what they're reading is very similar, but maybe not exact to what it's been translated in my Siddur. And so yes, I think that's a great idea. I will modify this to suggest that, because it's a great idea.
And many Haggadot have, at least of the ones we've encountered, have different illustrations that are used to improve or reflect upon the point of a certain part of the Haggadah, and sharing those illustrations and how each person reads what's in the illustrations is you know, adds to the fascination of doing this comparative Haggadah style Seder.
Great idea, because I know, what is it? Yes, you know, there are, who is it? I want to say Andrew Six, SYZX. You know, he was a Jewish artist, you know, and his Haggadah, which just recently my shul was throwing out from the library, and I took it, that some of the illustrations, it was right after the war, and some of the illustrations aren't of the Egyptians, but of the Nazis when they're talking about slavery. So that great idea. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Alan, Barry Ballack. I'm not Marlene, as it says on the screen.
That's
so,
fine.
First of all, thank you for doing this today. And you really sparked my IT to resolve some of these things. So in regard to searching for the Afikomen,
Yes.
I just thought of one way of virtual. I think we've all had the experience of trying to find a particular computer file.
Yes.
And searching through thousands of files. You can create a folder in a shared drive like Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox, and dump a zillion picture files in it with, you know, generic names. And in one of those files could be a picture file of matzah, and only give access to the folder to the kids attending your virtual Seder. And their mission is to try to find the picture of the matzah in all the other files. And there you have it.
Wonderful. You're looking for a creative way to tell a story that all too frequently has gotten, may have gotten stale, and that's a wonderful way that you never thought about when all you did is you broke the middle knots in half and you put it in. What was it? We have an afikoman bag that I think my grandmother on my father's side received from some yeshiva in Israel, probably shortly after the establishment of the state. And about the only thing that the kids really want to do is they want to get paid for the prize of finding it. But great idea, great idea. And if any of you have additional ideas, whether you want to share them during this presentation or say, gee, I thought of the following, I don't have to get the email out. I'll get it out tomorrow so that I can make sure that I received yours and include it in an email. Yeah, be creative. That's great. The picture of the afikoman in the shared Google Drive. Any other ideas or suggestions?
Not particularly for afikoman, but just how everybody should look at the chat. Some of us have posted links. In particular, our adults love the Passover bingo from the International Kiddush Club.
Okay.
I put a link on the chat for that. And also, I was going to say I'm thinking of doing something. I might have to get in touch with Allan because there are so many great Passover parodies of songs, and I've been collecting them. And I might do something before Passover. Allan, do you hear that?
Yeah. Yes.
We'll set up a time for that to do like a sing along or something, and I can put the songs up.
Right. While all of us are probably in the situation of regretting that, particularly, when the tradition has been that we've made Seder and we look forward to it for many months, even though frequently the preparation may be exhausting. And then all of a sudden you're saying, well, gee, we're not going to have those people. We're not going to have that family together. How can we do it so that, gee, all those, particularly our children, and if we're lucky enough to have grandchildren, and even our contemporaries, siblings, will be able to say after it's over, that was really a great experience. Thank you. A lot of trepidation, but gee, it really turned out much better than I thought it could possibly be. Any other?
Allan, this is Steve Pilchik. How are you?
Hi there, please.
Two things. One, I was on the call last night and listened to Alan Budman's presentation, but I didn't see it up on the FJMC webpage. So I'm asking if you could check that one and this one, both there for others to rewatch.
Sure.
And secondly, can you put up there it is, your email address again.
Of course. I know that if Alan Budman and I will talk, and and we'll make sure to get all the presentations, even if it means that I had been webmaster for many years, so I still have administrative rights. I believe, and I do have the log on for the training, the Yahoo, not the Yahoo, YouTube site. So yes, we can do that. We'll be glad to do that. And as I said, as a result of many of the things that you said, when I redo this, since even if the tradition is now next week when I do this again, we've given 4 weeks thought to it, so that, gee, this minhag may be different. I'll be obviously incorporating all the ideas that you can suggest. And if people that you know that didn't have an opportunity to log on to think about it, want to watch it next time, even though it'll be, it'll be a little different, please do. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, Alan, I do have a word search.
Great.
So
Send it to me. Send it to me so I can include it. I figure, gee, since I couldn't find one online, so I started to create it, and I said, okay, wait a second, after I can fit in all the words that I want to fit in, then it's adding the additional letters to the blank spaces so that it might be confusing. But if you've got it, that's great.
Hi, Alan, this is Betty Golub. I'm a recently retired Jewish educator, and I will go through all my flash drives to see what I have that I would be more than happy to share for everybody.
Great, great. I have always believed, what is it? I remember years ago, I used to do fundraising for the shul. And, one time during the Kol Nidre appeal pitch, prior to they had been using the same letter for years and years. And so I looked at that and I said, yeah, I've got to change this. And what I did is I told a Jewish story, and you really needed to read the whole thing to get to the end to find out that basically it said, gee, you can afford to give more. And it was a story about the congregant that's complaining that his house is in the shtetl, that his house is too small. So the rabbi suggests he bring the cow in, the chicken in, the goat in, and after and I did it rather than in 12-point Times Roman, I think I did it in 14-point. So it was really looked very different. And I was honored when one of the members of the congregation, who was an executive director of another Jewish organization, saw me the Shabbat after the letter was received, and he goes, "I'm stealing your letter." And I was honored. I was honored that he'd steal my letter, because the highest form of flattery is by emulation. And so yeah, if you've got stuff, please, I'd love to be able to share it so that that each of our virtual seders, whether it's only 2 families getting together, or whether it's 20 families getting together from the internet, can be a meaningful and memorable event.
Alan, Elliot
Yes.
here. I just want to give a note of caution, because we've been doing a lot of Zoom lately, as I'm sure everyone else is. People trying to sing together doesn't work because people have different bandwidths. So Barry Ballock, unless you can correct me, that's my sense. It's actually disturbing.
I try it. I try it at least once, and then you see, I wouldn't plan an entire Seder around it, but I'd try it at least once. Or the other option is singing together. Gee, if you've got a number of parody songs and you want to use a couple, have one family, for one part of the session be the singing. So you haven't got if there's a time lapse, it's only with one connection.
I agree with you. I think one verse at a time by sharing would be fantastic.
Right.
Together's a mess, trust me.
The best laid technology things often go awry. Many years ago, I don't know how many of you knew Captain Ruach, Bert Fishman, Avashalom. And Bert, his last presentation, I was honored to work with Bert on doing leadership development training for about 5.5 years. He wanted to do one last one, as he was unfortunately getting sicker. And although we recorded it, he wanted to do it live. And part of the problem is, while a convention center may have a very robust bandwidth, Pearlstone, where we were, didn't have a robust bandwidth. And so instead of being a successful presentation, what we should have done is we should have allowed him to introduce, and then basically my running the videotape from a local laptop. And because the bandwidth was bad, you know, instead of being a memorable experience, it became a horribly memorable experience. So yeah, that's something that is at least, you should think about it when you're doing this. Any other questions, concerns, or
I wanted
contributions?
to add along those lines that to some extent the disparity due to bandwidth differences simulates a lot of the chaos of the actual Seder.
Yeah, and I'm writing that, you know, bandwidth simulates actual Seder events. Go ahead.
I was going to say, this is Allan in Brookline, Massachusetts. If I may make one very important suggestion, there's one thing I really hate.
Please.
And that's when people are using their iPhone, if I may use that term for those who have Androids, and
Right.
they hold it vertically, and you get a very tall but narrow picture. I think, in my personal opinion, you're watching a widescreen TV in a horizontal position. Turn your phone horizontally so you can put it on a wide screen so others can see you and can see more of your surrounding. I think it makes for a more pleasing picture. Also, if I may, if you're going to use a laptop, place your laptop in the place of somebody at the table. And this way, you can look right at everybody else as if you're looking at somebody else at the table. The eye contact between two people is very important, I think. And those are just my, I don't know, my suggestions.
Great suggestions. I mean, many of these small things, you know, that's where what was it? Alan Budman and I were talking about something that somebody had sent me something, and many of the ideas that it talked about were ideas that we had thought of. And as I said as he mentioned, you know, I said, but you know, even in a truckload of gravel or a truckload of that they'll take out of, we'll say, a diamond mine, while most of the rock is just worthless, there may be one precious gem that one finds in there. And so these suggestions are wonderful. And we'll, you know, one of the wonderful things is they will be incorporated into the next presentation. So I thank you all. Any other questions, contributions, concerns? Where should I send my bribe money?
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Alan. Again,
Very well done.
be a presenter.
Very well done.
Alan.
Thank
If
you.
want to be a
Thank you.
Well done.
If you want to be a presenter, please write to abudman, ABUDMAN, at fjmc.org, and we will get you on. Thank you all for participating. Thank you, Alan, for presenting.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Okay.
Good one. Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.
Chag Sameach.
Thank you.
Bye to my
Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Alan.
Chag Sameach.
Again.